We all have a story. Your story is not my story, and my story is not yours. However, we can find joy, hope, and emotional healing even through our most painful moments in life. Let's walk and take this journey of healing together, one step at a time, because your story does not define you. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Naisha here, and I want to say welcome to Your Story Does Not Define You, the podcast. It is a beautiful sunny day here in California, and our world is going through a lot of things and has been going through a lot of things over the past several months, and maybe even the past several years or two. We've just been experiencing a lot of things. And so today I have a special episode that I want to share with you all, just to kind of address where some people are in the world today. But before I get started, definitely want to check in with you to see what your vibe is today. And so for me, my vibe today is humble. My vibe today is grateful for another day, and just grateful for the privilege and the honor that I get to talk to people every day, and that I get to be a part of people's stories, and that I get to check in with people, and that I get to help people navigate through their difficult challenges in life. And so with that being said, as we have a conversation today on this podcast, I really want you to check your vibe and to reground yourself as needed, because we're going to touch on a tough topic today. We just wrapped up the month of September, which September was National Suicide Prevention Month. And I really wanted to get an episode in before the month ended. However, life be life, and y'all, so that didn't quite happen. But here we are, October, better late than never, right? And I think that this episode is just an episode that applies even when we're not in the month of September. But today, I really want to take some time and honor National Suicide Prevention Month, even though we just passed it. However, there's a lot going on in our world, and suicide is something that people struggle with all the time. And so I really want to open up this difficult but very much essential conversation about suicide and about survival and about hope. And I really want to handle this episode with a lot of care, and really want to come from a space of where I would truly want to reduce shame, break the silence that's associated with people that are struggling with suicide. And I just want to remind everybody out there that you are not alone. You are not alone in this world. I do understand that there is a lot going on in this world. However, please know that even in the midst of whatever you're going through, that you are not alone. And whether you are here today because you want to better understand what a loved one is going through, or either you're just here because yourself, you're in a dark place, this is going to be the space for you today. And so as we have this conversation, I really want you to be mindful that this episode could be a little heavy. So if you're struggling right now, I want you to know that help is available to you 24/7. I'm in the United States. So if you are in the United States, you can call the 988 number to speak to someone any time of day. And please take advantage of that number. Even if you feel like, okay, I don't trust myself with myself, that I really, really need to talk to somebody, please utilize that number. That is the National Suicide Hotline Prevention number, 988, okay? And I want you to utilize that when you need to. So as we dive into this difficult conversation, this is not going to be a conversation where I'm going to give you a bunch of statistics, or I'm going to have a bunch of clinical jargon and a bunch of clinical talk with you. But this conversation is about being a human being that has natural feelings and emotions that you experience on a day-to-day. This is going to be about pain. It's going to be about survival, and it's going to be about hope. And it's also going to be about how we as individuals and community can hold space for those people who out there are struggling just with life. Okay. And so again, whether this is your story and this has been your personal struggle with suicidal thoughts, or you know somebody who has struggled, or you know that this is somebody's story, I just want you to be able to better understand how this works for somebody and what is somebody's thought process when they are in a space where they are struggling with the will or the desire to live or not to live. So at this time, I just want to invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe in and breathe out. So let's do that again. Take another deep breath. Breathe in and breathe out. And I just want you to stay with me. I want you to stay with me as we have this conversation and as I share some insight with you into what potentially goes on in the mind of somebody who is battling with the will or the desire to live. So as a therapist, I've sat with so many people in some of their darkest moments in life, and I've heard a lot of things that people have shared with me and the way that people have described their struggle with suicidal ideations. And sometimes I've heard people say things like, I really don't want to die. I just don't want to feel like this anymore. Sometimes I hear people say that, it's not that I want to die. I just wish I could disappear. I just wish that I didn't even have to wake up and have to deal with this again. Sometimes I've heard people say things like, I feel like I'm a burden and no one would miss me if I were gone. Sometimes I hear people say life is just too much, or I don't know what to do and how to do it. And so one of the things that I want you to understand is that when people make these statements, these are not signs of weakness, but these are signs of pain, of people really struggling with unbearable pain that they feel like they can't handle and they can't take life anymore. And this pain is pain that needs to be seen, and it's pain that needs to be heard. It's not pain that needs to be judged or minimized or dismissed, but it's pain that people actually really feel that they need to feel heard. And when we think about suicide, oftentimes people are in a space to where they feel blocked in, they feel boxed in, meaning that they feel like they're enclosed in a wall and the darkness is so heavy and it feels like the walls are closing in to the point that they don't know what to do. They don't have a solution. And in the moment they don't know, they don't see a way out. They don't see how things are going to change. So in their mind, because this is so heavy and because they feel this struggle and they feel this pain so deeply, people often get to a place where the only way that they see out is to end their life. Because if they end their life, then they don't have to deal with whatever it is that is causing them the hurt and the pain in the moment. And so when we think about suicidal ideations, it doesn't always mean that somebody wants to die or that somebody wants to end their life or kill themselves. Often it just means that people are looking for an escape. They're looking for a way to resolve their issue and to resolve their problem. And unfortunately, their brain is trying to resolve the problem or trying to solve the pain that they're feeling. And again, in that moment, the only way that they see out is to end it, right? But one thing that people don't see and they don't realize in the moment is that pain is very temporary. Even when it doesn't feel like it, in their mind, no solutions exist. And they feel like even if they reach out to somebody, that there is not going to be a solution to help them to get out of the situation that they're in. So what people need in that moment is they need to be seen, they need to be heard, they need to feel love, and they need to feel as if there is help out there. sometimes people don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so with that being said, again, when the walls are closing in and the darkness is closing in, it's hard to see the light. Even though the light is there, it's really hard to see that light. And so one of the things that I often share with people is that if you see any light at the end of the tunnel, cling on to that light, whatever that might look like, If that is like the smallest dot of light, I want you to cling on to that light, because again, suicide is not always about wanting to die, but again, it's about wanting to get help and wanting that unbearable pain that they are feeling to stop. Sometimes people want answers, and sometimes people just want that love, support, and connection, and they just want to feel seen and heard. And so one of the things that I often tell people is that if you see somebody, whether you're in the store, whether it's somebody that you know, whether it's somebody that you don't know, is that if you see somebody that just looks like maybe they're struggling, it's okay to say hi to people. It's okay to say, how's your day going? It's okay to say, are you okay? And most importantly, if it's your loved one or it's your friend, it's okay to say, are you contemplating suicide? And I know there's a lot of myths around asking that question, because a lot of people think that if you ask somebody that question, that it's going to make them want to end their life by suicide. However, that is very incorrect. And that is a myth, that if you ask somebody that question, that they're going to want to end their life by suicide. A lot of times people really just want to be seen and they want to be heard. And so internally, people are struggling with the fact that nobody sees the hurt and the pain that I'm going through. And they just want somebody to see that they need help, right? They are struggling with the fact that nobody sees them and nobody sees the struggle that they're going to. So a lot of times they just want to be seen and they want to be heard, and they want to know that somebody is actually paying attention to them. And then a lot of times they also want to feel like somebody understands them and that somebody wants to help them and has a desire to help them. And so again, today, I really just want us to put us in a mindset of what we can do and how we can support somebody that could be potentially struggling with suicide. And again, that could be you, or that could be someone that you know or somebody that you love. So even though this topic is kind of heavy, I want everybody to know out there today that you are not alone. If you have to listen to this podcast episode several times, I just want you to know that you are not alone. You are not alone, okay? And so a couple of things I want to go over is I want to go over some things that could potentially help. I want to talk about some warning signs, and then I also want to talk about some things that you shouldn't say to somebody. And then I just want to offer some additional resources to somebody out there that is struggling, or if you know somebody out there that is struggling with suicide themselves, okay? And so I want to just take a minute and just talk about some things in regards to what helps, okay? So what helps is connection. Being connected to somebody that understands you, and even if they don't understand you, somebody that can validate you and make you feel seen and heard. Non-judgmental listening. So someone saying things like, I'm here, not things like cheer up or look on the bright side. Those are things that definitely sound harsh and sound very unvalidating. So things that validate where the person is. So things like saying, that sounds really hard, or I'm not going anywhere, or I'll be here to support you the best way that I can, right? Therapy helps, medication helps, peer support helps, spirituality for some people helps, and time helps too, right? So we often underestimate how much we can survive. And I feel like as an individual, we all have levels of capacity. And I often talk about to people about where they are with their mental capacity. And I often encourage people to, if you know that your mental capacity or your emotional capacity is 80% every day and you only have 50% to give today, I always encourage people to show up in the capacity, whatever they have to give. You may not can give 100% today, but at 50%, you could show up and you could still do the things that you need to do. You may not be as joyful, you may not be as fruitful in doing it, but you still can show up at the 50% capacity. So when we underestimate how much we can survive, we are more resilient than we really know that we are. Life happens to us all. We all experience things. And I think sometimes when we talk ourselves out of the things that we can experience, it's because of ourselves, of what we tell ourselves that we can't do, and that we're not strong enough to do, or that we can't get through it, or that we can't make it. That is us talking ourselves out of a situation. And how we handle that is how we wrap our mind around things emotionally and mentally, because we are built to handle more than probably what we really think we are. Okay. And when we have all these things that we're carrying or that we're holding on to, we are not alone. So if you're looking to support somebody that is struggling with suicide, some of the things that you shouldn't say are, you have too much to live for. Just think of your family, but you seem fine, right? So saying things like this come from a place of love, but they can often feel very invalidating to a person, especially in the mental or emotional space that they're in. Saying things like that are not things that make people feel good. So you can try saying things instead like, I'm so glad that you told me. Wow, that really sounds really painful. Do you want to talk more about that? Or things like, I really care about you. Let's try to figure this out together. Like, how can I help support you get through this? And so you want to put yourselves in that person's shoes and try to really, really figure out what would really help me if I was in this space. What can somebody say to me that would make me really feel heard and really feel seen and really feel loved? And these are the things that I want you to think about when it comes to supporting somebody who is struggling with suicide. And if it's yourself that are the one that's struggling with suicide, these are things that I want you to tell yourself, like, I can get through this. Like, I know that this is hard. However, I know that I can make it. I know that things will change. It may take a long time, but I know that things will change. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself, because a lot of times when people are struggling with suicide, they don't often share that with somebody else. So we hear so many stories on the news and in social media where we hear about people that took their life by suicide, how nobody knew, right? They smiled in front of the public eye. They smiled when they were around their family, but internally they were struggling and they were crying out for help, but nobody seen them and nobody heard them. And it's not until after the fact, when, investigations are happening, that people start connecting the dots. And when a person was actually crying out loud, it was almost like their cry was invisible, because even though they tried to express where they were in their needs, it was almost like nobody seen them or nobody heard them. And so they eventually got to a place where they decided that they wanted to end their life. So let's talk about some of the warning signs of suicide when a person is contemplating suicide. Some of the warning signs are when people start talking about they want to die, or if people express that they have a great deal of guilt or shame that they're dealing with, or if they express that they want to be a burden, or that they're a burden to other people. These are things that you want to listen for, right? So when you actively listen to somebody, that means you're listening to actually hear what they're saying and not listening to respond to what they're saying, but you're actually listening and listening from a place of care. So if somebody starts talking to you about wanting to die, or, if God just took me today, I would be fine. People that are dealing with a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, or people that just feel like they're a burden on others, These are things that we want to open our ears to hear. And then another thing is that we want to talk about, okay, when people start talking about how they feel, if a person feels empty or hopeless or trapped, or if they feel like they don't have a reason to live, if they're feeling extremely sad, or if they're feeling anxious or agitated or full of rage, and maybe even having some unbearable emotional or physical pain. If you notice that somebody is feeling like that, you want to keep an extra eye out on that person, because they could be definitely in a space where they're contemplating ending their life. And then if you notice that people's behaviors change. So for example, if you see that somebody starts making a plan, or they start looking at ways to die, or if you notice that they're becoming very isolated and start withdrawing themselves from your friends and your family, if they start saying goodbye or giving their personal things away, things that you know that are very meaningful to them or important, or if they start making a will. If somebody starts taking dangerous risks, such as driving extremely fast or doing things that you know, okay, this is not normal. If they start engaging in a lot of risky behaviors, or if they start displaying a lot of extreme mood swings, if they're starting to eat or sleep more or less, if you notice these things, or even if they start using drugs or alcohol more than normal, these are often warning signs for somebody that is contemplating suicide. And the best thing that we could do for that person is to try to get them help as soon as possible. And so sometimes it's not easy to have these conversations with people when we notice these patterns. But if it's somebody that you love and you care about, I definitely want to encourage you to please don't be afraid to reach out for help. And if you are the person that this is you, but you don't have anybody to reach out to you, or you don't have anybody there to support you, I want you to know that you are not alone. And all it takes for you is to take that one step to say, I need help. You don't even have to worry about the rest, because the rest will happen on its own. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking to yourself today, that's me. Please stay with me today, and please allow space for yourself to be vulnerable in the space that you're in. Life, and it happens to us all. Believe you me, I've been through some very, very trying things that have been really heavy, and everybody's weight and being able to carry heaviness looks different. And your weight may be so heavy right now that you feel like you can't carry it. So please know that there's no shame in feeling what you're feeling. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to be guilty. You don't have to feel any of that. However, I want you to know that you deserve help, and it's okay to ask for it. You never have to do this alone. Even if it's hard to believe that right now, even if you're listening to my voice right now and you're saying, I hear you, I hear what you're saying, I hear your voice, but I'm really having a hard time to wrap my mind around what you are saying. Please know that you matter. You matter. You matter more than what you think you do. The world is so much better when we can all be a part of it. And I just want you to know that there are better days ahead. Even if your mind can't even wrap around that picture, even if you can't see it, my ask is that I just want you to cling to that little bit of light of hope. As small as it might be in your mind, if you could just see the teeniest dot of light, I want you to stay focused on that light, because there are better days ahead. The tunnel and the road might seem very long to get there. You will get there if you continue to cling on to hope, and if you continue to reach out for help, and if you continue to push forward every day, wake up every day with a new mindset that today is going to be better. Even if it doesn't seem like that, even if it doesn't feel like that, I just want you to cling on to that little bit of hope, and I want you to hold on to that. Okay? So, here are some resources that could be helpful to you, and I want to leave these with you. First and foremost, if you are in the United States, I want you to text or call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. This is a call or text number that you can utilize anytime, 24/7, okay? You can call the crisis text line. Text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Again, that's text the word HOME to 741-741. You can also reach out to the National Alliance on Mental Health, NAMI, and you can look that up online, which is just NAMI.org, and that is NAMI.org. Or you can also look up the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is A like Apple, F like Frank, S like Sam, P like Paul.org. And if you're supporting someone else that might be struggling with suicide right now, please educate yourself. Educate yourself by learning the warning signs. And don't be afraid to take a free suicide prevention training. They're out there, okay? Ask your friends how they're really doing and be ready to listen. Most importantly, be ready to listen. And when I say listen, I mean actively listening, where somebody can tell that you are truly listening to help and support them, and that you're not listening to have a response, or you're not listening to have some feedback or to say something to them. But remember that when you active listening, you are listening to help and support somebody, okay? So before we wrap up today, I just want to have a moment of silence, and I want us to just take a moment to silence everybody who has lost their life to suicide. And I just want to have a moment of silence for those who are struggling right now, to honor them and to send out vibes of support and love and of healing and of hope. Because again, we are out here rooting for those that struggle. I oftentimes tell my clients, if I were to take a poll of everybody that ended their life by suicide, I guarantee you that 95% of those people would say that they wish they hadn't have done it. I've talked to people who have actually tried to end their life by suicide and who were almost successful. However, they were afforded the opportunity to continue to live. And when I say that people have expressed their gratitude of being able to still be alive, that's profound right then and there. And that speaks to when people are struggling with suicide, it doesn't really mean that they really want to die, but it's a temporary fix. It's a permanent fix to a temporary situation that will eventually get better. So let's just take a moment and have a moment of silence for those who have lost their life by suicide, and also for those who are struggling right now. Thank you for sharing in that moment of silence with me. So as I wrap up, this episode is just an episode to continue the conversation about suicide and about suicide prevention. So I want to leave you with knowing that suicide prevention is not just about the hotlines, but it's about compassion. It's about community and creating a culture where mental health is treated with care, and it's treated with the care that it deserves. We all deserve to be in a healthy mental and emotional space. So if this episode helped you, or you think someone else needs to hear it, please share it. Share it on your social media platforms. You never know who is silently struggling. You never know who feels like they're alone. And to those who are in pain right now, please know that you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not beyond repair. You are not beyond help. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of healing, and you are worthy of life. You're worthy of support. You're worthy of connection. You're worthy of so much more than what you think. And you can handle so much more than what you think. Thank you all for listening today. Thank you all for taking this time with me to honor Suicide Prevention Month. Thank you for your support and your continued support on this podcast. Continue to share these episodes. Continue to chime in with me and let me know your thoughts and feelings. And as we continue to grow, and as we continue to wrap our mind around the fact that our stories do not define who we are, even though we may struggle and even though we may experience things in life, it doesn't define us. Our testimonies, our tests, are testimonies that we could share with somebody else to help them to get through whatever they're going through, because we are not alone. So until next time, Dr. Naisha here. Take care of yourself, and let's take care of each other's, because we are our brother and sister's keeper.